Something's shifting in Australia's urban landscape. And no, it's not just the sudden urge to drink oat lattes and join a cycling club. It's a full-scale migration movement with one unmistakable target: Melbourne. Once seen as Sydney's quieter, artsy cousin who prefers indie music and actually reads the event posters on tram stops, Melbourne has stepped into the spotlight. And not just in terms of population, but in opportunity, influence, and that elusive thing called livability. From young professionals chasing career breakthroughs, to families longing for a bit more space and a lot less stress, to international students craving world-class education with a side of laneway culture, Melbourne is calling. Even Sydney-siders are packing up, saying goodbye to overpriced shoebox apartments and hello to suburbs where parking exists. In this video, we'll dive into what's really driving the shift: economic momentum, cultural gravity, housing realities, and infrastructure that, mostly, works. Melbourne's moment isn't coming. It's here. Melbourne's population boom. In 2023, Melbourne officially overtook Sydney as Australia's most populous city. Yes, it finally happened. And no, Sydney hasn't taken it well. While part of the shift was due to boundary changes, thanks for joining, Melton, that doesn't change the bigger picture. Melbourne has been growing faster for years, and now the numbers are backing it up like a well-organized tram schedule. On a good day, by early 2024, Melbourne's population surged past 5.35 million, growing by over 140,000 people a year. That's like adding a whole regional town every 12 months. And it's not just births and brunch lovers driving this boom. Interstate movers from Sydney and Brisbane are jumping ship, international students are returning in force, and skilled migrants are choosing Melbourne over other cities that can't quite get their act or housing market together. Looking ahead, Melbourne is projected to hit 6 million in the early 2030s. And by 2050, it could be home to 9 million people. That's more than the entire population of Austria crammed into a city that still calls flip-flops thongs. But the big question remains, why Melbourne? What's behind the pull? To answer that, we need to dig deeper than just census stats and coffee orders. 1. Housing, still within reach. Melbourne's housing market isn't exactly cheap, but in the world of Australian real estate, it's still the relatively affordable sibling. While the national affordability crisis has hit every capital, Melbourne continues to offer more breathing room than its high-flying cousin Sydney. As of 2025, the median house price in Melbourne hovers just under $950,000. Compare that to Sydney, where prices are nudging $1.5 million, and you're looking at a gap of over $500,000. That's not just loose change. That's the difference between owning your own backyard and living in someone else's converted garage. The apartment scene in Melbourne is also far more forgiving. Inner-city units are still within reach for young professionals, students, and first home buyers who don't want to spend the next 3 decades handcuffed to a mortgage. In outer suburbs like Tarneit, Mickleham, Truganina, and Clyde, house and land packages are popping up like mushrooms after rain, except with more schools, shopping centers, and trains. These areas are no longer seen as lifeless sprawl. They're becoming self-contained hubs with real character. The Victorian government is pushing hard on planning reforms, encouraging higher density developments and investing in build-to-rent projects. So, while affordability is shrinking across the board, Melbourne remains one of the last big cities where the average family can still dream of buying a home. 2. The jobs engine. Melbourne isn't just more affordable, it's employable. And in a country where job security can feel like winning the lottery, that's no small feat. The city's job market has quietly become one of the strongest and most diversified in Australia. In 2024 alone, Victoria added over 130,000 new jobs. That's not just a number. It's an entire stadium of people stepping into work across industries like healthcare, construction, tech, professional services, and logistics. Business investment has been surging too, outpacing the national average and creating ripple effects across suburbs and sectors. The healthcare industry is leading the charge. Melbourne's Parkville Biomedical Precinct isn't just a cluster, it's a juggernaut, one of the largest medical research hubs in the Southern Hemisphere. Hospitals, aged care facilities, and allied health clinics are crying out for workers, from nurses and radiologists to lab techs and physios. Tech isn't far behind. The once sleepy suburb of Cremorne is now called Australia's Silicon Yarra. Yes, really. And Docklands is buzzing with startups, scale-ups, and tech giants elbowing for space. Melbourne's universities act like talent factories, churning out graduates ready to plug into this growing digital economy. The bottom line? Whether you're coding, caring, building, consulting, or launching your own thing, Melbourne has a place for you. For skilled migrants and ambitious locals, it offers that golden combo, a career with momentum and a lifestyle that still allows you to breathe, or at least sip your flat white slowly. 3. A global education capital, Melbourne isn't just a great place to live. It's one of the world's most iconic student cities, with 10 universities spread across the metropolitan area, including academic heavyweights like the University of Melbourne, Monash, RMIT, La Trobe, Swinburne, and Victoria University. It's no surprise that international students are lining up, figuratively and literally at visa centers, to study here. In 2024, Australia welcomed over 600,000 international student visa holders, and Melbourne was one of their top 2 choices. And it's easy to see why. The campuses are world-class, the public transport is mostly reliable, and you can get bubble tea, biryani, and banh mi all on the same street. Beyond lectures and late-night cramming, students are helping power the economy, injecting billions into retail, rentals, cafes, and casual job markets. But Melbourne isn't just a pit stop on the academic road trip. For many, it becomes home. Graduates often stay on, transitioning into skilled visas and permanent residency, thanks to Victoria's welcoming migration policies and broad occupation lists. The state has made a name for itself as one of the most accessible destinations for international graduates looking to put down roots. Then there's the city's unmatched diversity. Communities from India, China, Nepal, Vietnam, the Philippines, and beyond have built vibrant neighborhoods where new arrivals find familiar food, languages, traditions, and perhaps most importantly, someone who understands their struggle with MyGov and tax file numbers. In Melbourne, education is more than a degree. It's a launchpad for opportunity, belonging, and a future that feels within reach. 4. Infrastructure in Overdrive. Melbourne isn't just bracing for the future, it's actively building it. While some cities play catch-up with growth, Melbourne's strategy is more like assembling the IKEA furniture before guests arrive, and yes, with most of the screws intact. Take the $12 billion metro tunnel, set to open in 2025. It'll create an entirely new underground rail line through the CBD, easing congestion and giving commuters a smoother ride, without having to elbow 5 people just to reach the train door. Then there's the Suburban Rail Loop, a colossal orbital train line that will eventually connect key outer suburbs directly, making it possible to travel across the city without having to funnel through the center like ants through a bottleneck. Big projects like the Northeast Link and the Melbourne Airport Rail are also charging ahead, finally addressing some of the city's most infamous choke points. But it's not just the billion-dollar headlines. Melbourne is removing dozens of pesky level crossings, improving tram frequency, redesigning bus routes, and rolling out electric buses and cycle paths like it's prepping for a Tour de Future. This isn't just about moving people around. It's about making Melbourne livable, sustainable, and just a little bit less stuck in traffic. 5. Culture and community. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet or shiny infrastructure projects. People move to Melbourne because of how it feels. This is a city with soul, a place where creativity, community, and a slightly excessive number of rooftop bars all live happily side by side. Melbourne is the undisputed capital of live music in Australia, boasting more venues per capita than anywhere else. Whether it's a jazz trio in a Brunswick laneway or a punk band in a Fitzroy pub that smells vaguely like 1996, the city is always humming with sound. Add to that an endless lineup of art exhibitions, film festivals, theater productions, book fairs, and street performances, and you've got a cultural calendar that could wear out even the most enthusiastic extrovert. The food? Let's just say your taste buds will never be bored. With decades of immigration and culinary experimentation, Melbourne is a world tour on a plate, from Ethiopian injera to Korean barbecue to Lebanese mezza, all within a few tram stops. Then there's the outdoors. Parks, riverside trails, sports fields, and beaches within reach offer fresh air and space to unwind when it's not raining, hailing, and sunny all in the same hour. But hey, unpredictable weather is practically a local personality trait. And most importantly, Melbourne is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. Nearly 40% of its residents were born overseas, making diversity not just an ideal but a lived experience. It's the kind of place where everyone belongs, even if you're still figuring out how to pronounce Praran. 6. The Sydney factor. It's hard to talk about Melbourne's rise without giving a nod to the city it's steadily outpacing, Sydney. Now, Sydney still holds the crown as Australia's financial powerhouse, but for many, that crown comes with a hefty mortgage and a 2-hour commute. In the past 2 years, median rents in some Sydney suburbs have jumped over 20%. Even doctors and lawyers are struggling to live near their offices, unless those offices are on the Central Coast. Transport? Let's just say it's a work in progress. Infrastructure upgrades haven't kept pace with the population boom, and traffic jams are practically a lifestyle. Yes, the harbor is stunning, and the beaches are iconic, but you can't live in a postcard. Meanwhile, Melbourne, with its relatively saner housing market, smarter planning, and more inclusive vibe, is quietly stealing the spotlight, and possibly Sydney's brunch crowd. 7. Suburbs with a pulse. One of Melbourne's most important trends is the rise of the suburbs, not as sleepy bedroom communities, but as vibrant, self-sustaining urban centers. The 20-minute neighborhood strategy aims to create suburbs where people can access work, school, shops, healthcare, and recreation within a 20-minute walk or ride. This is already being realized in places like Sunshine, Box Hill, and Werribee. Employment hubs, university campuses, and innovation centers are being built away from the CBD, redistributing opportunity across the city. This decentralization is reducing congestion, easing housing demand, and giving residents more time and better quality of life. Melbourne is proving that cities don't have to grow just upward or outward. They can grow smarter. Growth isn't painless. Melbourne has its share of challenges. Traffic congestion is still a daily frustration for many. Public transport hasn't kept up in every corridor. Health services and schools are under pressure, particularly in rapidly growing outer suburbs. The environment is another concern. Urban sprawl threatens biodiversity and green wedges. Climate change increases the risk of bushfires, floods, and heat waves. Water supply and energy use will need careful management. Affordability, while better than Sydney, is still a serious issue. Young renters, casual workers, and low-income families are finding it harder to get by. Homelessness and housing insecurity are growing. But unlike many cities, Melbourne is confronting these issues with a plan. Its leadership is investing, reforming, and experimenting. It doesn't have all the answers, but it's asking the right questions. So, why is everyone moving to Melbourne? Because it offers a rare balance of opportunity and livability. It's big, but welcoming. Ambitious, but grounded. Fast-moving, but not frantic. It's a city where a teacher, a nurse, a coder, and a student can all see a future. Melbourne isn't perfect, but it is intentional. It's building not just for growth, but for resilience. Not just for today's residents, but for the next generation. As Australia continues to urbanize, the cities that thrive will be those that adapt, include, and invest. Melbourne, right now, is doing all three. If you're thinking about making a move, it might be time to look south. Melbourne isn't just growing, it's evolving. Thanks for watching. If you've moved to Melbourne recently or are planning to, tell us why. What's drawing you in? What do you hope the future looks like? Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories on Australia's shifting cities.